Today, Congresswoman Ilhan Omar's time to respond to the Minnesota Fraud Oversight Committee's call to answer questions has run out. The walls are closing in on James Comey as new evidence comes to light that forces him to turn himself in, and a loophole allows people who own luxury cars to receive SNAP benefits.
And meanwhile, Minnesota lawmakers are asking Congresswoman Ilhan Omar to respond by Tuesday regarding questions about a statewide child nutrition fraud scheme. The lawmakers are seeking Omar's written and electronic communications involving the state's Feeding Our Future program, which misused millions of dollars in taxpayer funds. State lawmakers specifically hoping to look at Omar's correspondence with the owners of the Safari restaurant. State lawmakers point out Omar was a regular at that restaurant, staging many campaign events there. Its owners recently pleaded guilty for their role in the $250 million fraud scheme. Now, Omar's team and allies have largely framed allegations trying to link her to fraud as politically motivated and not substantiated. But for more on this, we are joined by Minnesota State Representative Kristen Robbins tonight. She is the chair of the Minnesota House Fraud Prevention and State Oversight Committee, also a candidate for Minnesota governor. Appreciate you being here today and sharing your perspective. And I know we're fast approaching this Tuesday request for Congresswoman Omar here. If she doesn't respond by this deadline, what is your committee's move on Wednesday morning?
We hope she will respond. She certainly owes it to Minnesota taxpayers and families to respond to our questions. And so I'm still hoping, but if not, the committee will examine all our options and we will continue to press for it because she created the program, the Meals Act, that took the guardrails off the school nutrition program that created the conditions for all this fraud. And she should come and answer our questions.
Now, this Meals Act was set up during the pandemic to help provide food for people who needed it, and these are usually children ages, in a K to 12 range. Now, the guardrails that were removed were people weren't allowed to eat on site; they could take the food with them, and that there wasn't any oversight. There wasn't any government agencies or people coming in monitoring and making sure everything looked good. So the policies of these people being mandated to eat the meals at the site and to have people come in and monitor and make sure everything is okay was relaxed by Governor Tim Walz because he didn't want any complications or make it so that people couldn't get the food that they needed. However, this backfired and left the door wide open for people to exploit the program and take in millions and millions of fraud from the government. And what happened was, as I mentioned in another video, the FBI had surveyed, I believe it was the Safari restaurant where this was all discovered, and any given site had said that they fed 3,000 to 6,000 children a day. However, the FBI, when they monitored this place, only saw around 40 people coming in and getting food. As of making this video, yesterday was the cutoff, and as this post is saying here, today is the cutoff. The Minnesota House Fraud Prevention Committee demanded that she, Ilhan Omar, turn over all texts, emails, and records tied to the $250 million Feeding Our Future child nutrition fraud scandal, including communications with key players and the Safari restaurant where she held events. Her name surfaced 6 times in trial exhibits. She authorized the Meals Act that critics say opened the floodgates for fraud during the pandemic. And she just skipped a hearing, apparently. Now they want answers, of course. Will she comply and clear her name, or stonewall and force the next move? Now this is tragic because we know that there are people out there who were supposed to get these meals who didn't because the money that was actually going to benefit these people went into the fraudsters' pockets. Because unlike what people might think, the government does not have an endless supply of money. They have to print it, which of course causes inflation and prices to go up. And this really does hurt the people that it's supposed to benefit. When it goes into the pockets of fraudsters, that's less money in a pool to be distributed to the people who really need it and who really can benefit from it.
Squad Democrat Ilhan Omar closing in on a deadline set by Minnesota Republicans to turn over documents about potential ties to a state fraud ring after she dodged a hearing last month. Our senior correspondent Mike Tobin is reporting live out of Chicago. He's got the latest details for us. Hey, Mike. And Senator, that deadline is today for Minnesota Congresswoman Ilhan Omar to turn over documents and communication tied to defendants in that massive Feeding Our Future scandal. The Minnesota House Committee on Fraud Prevention and State Agency Oversight is holding its last meeting of the legislative session today. However, the committee does not have enough votes to subpoena the Congresswoman, so the committee doesn't have a legal mechanism to compel Omar to cooperate. The chair of the committee has sent Omar multiple invitations and requests for documents. Omar does not respond. Omar now sponsored the 2020 Meals Act, which removed the guardrails on COVID relief money and helped the fraud run up to $250 million. Despite that, the chair of the Fraud Prevention Committee does not anticipate the Minnesota congressman will respond by the deadline.
It shows her continued disdain for the taxpayers. She feels like she's above having to answer for her involvement in the fraud and her responsibility as a member of Congress who, she passed the bill that took the guardrails off the school nutrition program that led to the conditions that enabled Feeding Our Future.
So that's right. Simply, Ilhan Omar is just trying to stall. And just like her changing her net worth from 30 million to around 100,000 and blaming a so-called accountant, and she's hoping that if she just ignores this, it's all going to go away. Maybe she thinks that if she can just keep blaming it on racism or causing confusion or even Trump, that it's going to create some kind of red herring. It's going to distract people or make people afraid or worried that they're going to be called racist if they look into it. Maybe that's exactly what she thinks is going to happen. But all this really does is create more suspicion around her. If she's really innocent, she should have no problem providing the evidence and everything. It's not about attacking her because of her ethnicity or any other means or any other reason, rather. It's simply the facts. She presented numbers, she was involved in a scandal, and the taxpayers need to know where their money goes. Now, if she can't be subpoenaed by the state, she can be subpoenaed by the federal government, and the U.S. House Committee on Oversight and Accountability can subpoena her because the $250 million that went into the Feeding Our Future scam was federal dollars. So they do have jurisdiction to force Ilhan Omar to answer, well, to at least appear to try to answer questions or get answers from her and to provide documents.
Treasury Secretary Bessent called Minnesota ground zero for what may be the most egregious welfare scam in our nation's history to date. 85 of the 98 people who were charged by the Justice Department with this welfare scheme are Somali. And you know this, the Treasury Secretary is probing whether any of the money was somehow funneled outside the country. He actually issued new standards. He's going to make it make someone disclose if they receive public assistance when they try to wire money out of the country, and he's lowered the bar for suspicious activity. What is the practical impact of doing that in the community?
It's just creating fear. What they are doing is creating confusion, chaos, trying to intimidate people from being able to exercise their regular, normal activities that they would. There is no justification in any of the things that they say.
Well, if the federal government and these investigators are trying to interfere or disrupt what people normally do in their normal lives, and that normal thing that they do in their lives is fraud, then by all means, interrupt away. Now, she certainly is acting like a guilty person, as mentioned. She should be just able to submit the documentation if she's got nothing to hide, right? Everyone can be able to just look at what she has, see, oh, okay, it was an accounting error. Okay, fire your accountant, bring somebody in. But she's not even producing the documents to prove what she's saying. She's just hoping, as I mentioned, that it'll just all go away because she says it's a mistake. But I'll leave it up to you guys. What do you think? How involved is she in this whole Somali fraud thing? How did she enable it? Since she's tied so much into the Feeding Our Future and the owner with the Sapphire restaurant used it so much for campaigns and things, did she lower the guardrails on this because she was benefiting from it? Is she really worth that $30 million? And if so, did it come from part of this $250 million?